Aye. We do have, did anyone else sign up, Nick, or just you? Okay. We have a public participation. Mr. Hammer and I have discussed in advance what actually kind of the rules are for this. And also I provided in the packet the copy because actually we haven't had any public participation for some time, so I just wanted everybody to know how it worked. Dick, you have your time. There is some video, but not video, but pictures.
And I do want to apologize a little bit up front because I have a terrible tremor in my hand, and so you're going to see that cursor go all over the place trying to find places.
So if you just hit the arrow on the keyboard, the left, right arrow, you'll do it too.
You learn something.
I think. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Left arrow will take you back.
That's all right. Say something. I do want to thank the Utility Service Board for this opportunity to address the cutback of songbird nesting habitat that Frank was doing. As I believe you were made aware when we actually did this before the board in 2019, the roadside brush, especially around the rear lagoon, is extremely high-value nesting habitat for yellow warbler, northern cardinals, and numerous other songbirds. On that occasion, the cutting of the roadside brush occurred while many of the nests were still occupied, resulting in their total mortality of baby birds in the affected area. The cutting was subsequently halted at that time, and we were left with the impression that any future cutbacks that they occur would be far less drastic. As this and the next couple of pictures show, the cutback that took place this year, was even more drastic than on the previous occasion. There were places around the rear lagoon where the brush was cut back over 8 feet from the road. As you can see, trees over 2 inches in diameter were cut down. Virtually every bit of the brush that was cut was prime nesting habitat. It wasn't the only nesting habitat, but it was the best of what was there. And best estimates of birders who are regular visitors to the lagoon are that up to 70% of the prime nesting habitat was lost. A study by scientists and researchers from the US and Canada, published in the October 2019 issue of Science magazine, documented a precipitous decline in the population of once common North American birds of nearly 3 billion since the 1970s, with habitat loss the leading cause of that decline. Most folks who have witnessed the population of the highly adaptive Canada goose grow to outright nuisance levels are simply unaware that many songbird populations are in sharp decline. Most of you on this board can probably recall that when you were young, the call of the bobwhite quail was a common sound every spring and summer in rural Indiana. But as the fence rows that were once stiff with grasses, forbs, and even small trees were cleared or even removed and incorporated every square foot possible into agriculture, that sound virtually disappeared. When brushy fence rows disappeared, so did the quail. When I had the opportunity to speak with PJ earlier last week, he said that his idea was to cut back the brush to protect the sides of the vehicles that were driving around the rear lagoon from being scraped by the brush. And that he had requested the county cut it back as far as they deemed necessary. And they cut it back that far. They chose to cut it back that far so it wouldn't have to be cut for several years. When I explained our concerns about the destruction of nesting habitat, PJ agreed that bringing those concerns to this board was our best recourse. He did say specifically that they cut it back this time of year, this early this year, to ensure that it would not occur while the birds were actively nesting, for which I sincerely thank them. When we appeared before you in 2019, we informed you that the Frankfurt Lagoons has become a popular birding destination for birders throughout the Indiana birding community. That might seem like a rather small community, but you would be surprised how large it is. There was a person from the Indiana Audubon Society who planned to be here tonight, but because of other things that came up, she will not be able to be here. She was going to speak with that issue. But that's a popularity continues to grow. And personally, met people from as far away as Merrillville, up by Chicago, from all over the state. There's myself personally, people in this room, met folks from areas all over the state. Not only has the drastic cutback of brush destroyed high-value nesting habitat, it has laid bare some of the unsightly illegal dumping that has occurred in recent years. I think you can see, maybe not too clearly, but there's a bunch of old tires and stuff that are off the side of the road here. The combination of all of this hardly creates a great first impression on visitors from outside of the community who come specifically for the birding opportunities of Frankfurt. And finally, on May 18th of last year, this board named Rick as liaison between the board and the Frankfurt Lagoons. And at that time, Rick said, quote, "The lagoons are a very well recognized community resource. They deserve a proactive management style and a proactive plan to move in the future. There are tremendous improvements we can put out there for not much money." We trust that that statement still reflects the sentiments of the board, and we respectfully submit that near the top of any proactive management plan should be the preservation of prime songbird habitat, a key component that should cost little or no money. I thank you very much for this time. If you have any questions, I'll be more than willing to try and answer some.
Thank you.
And I do have some suggestions. We didn't have much time.
All right. Really optional as to whether any of the board wants to address anything in this. But appreciate, especially the suggestions. That would be,
You need another one? Is there one short?
There's two here that Henry can read.
Ingrid, why don't you go ahead and put one of those in the minutes as an attachment?
Well, I would just say this, and it's the point person for the board. I appreciate your comments. While it's true, we do want to be sensitive to the habitat. To some extent, we're in between some trade-off decisions. First and foremost, we have to have a shared resource at this site. By that I mean encourage safe public participation and viewing opportunities, as well as wildlife coexisting. And if I back up a bit, about 22 years ago, when I started getting involved with coming to utility board meetings, I guess at the request of some of the senior management of the Farmers Bank and Gina Sheets with the Chamber of Commerce, going back that far, one of the more, I guess, frustrating or contentious topics this board has dealt with, whoever the members have been, has been lagoons. And over the years, we've heard of the pro-fishermen group suggest and then argue that the North Wildlife Wetlands should be converted to a pond so you can fish there. We've heard just the opposite from nature lovers. We've had residents who we know bring in fish illegally and dump those in the ponds, which is against state law. It's, of course, it's a site that's rife with illegal dumping, signs of drug use. We believe there's a reasonable level of drug exchanges and sales going on back there. And through all this turmoil, there is some light at the end of the tunnel. And I think it's fair, and the board members can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's fair to say this current board intends to manage the site for the benefit of all, including wildlife and people. Where it becomes more of a discussion point is, for example, if we were to make an improvement to improve the viewing of the wetlands to the north, some people would say, well, you're cutting away natural habitat. Yes, that would be correct. So having survived 48 years of high technology manufacturing in my career, one thing I learned over that period of time is most everything turns out to be a compromise. And I think the lagoon site is one other example of compromise. We could exclude people and let wildlife take over. It would be a great wildlife sanctuary. But if we don't let people in to see the wildlife, I'm not sure that's necessarily a good idea. So particularly this past year, and I'm not going to make excuses, but the board and utilities have had a great deal of challenges to deal with the pandemic and manpower projects. So I did authorize the trimming of the roadway around the north wetlands area. And in fact, we rely on our partners to help us maintain that site. We don't, to my knowledge, we don't ourselves, utilities, purchase and spread gravel out there, and the highway is kind of do it for us. Very often they do it without any request being made. So in all this picture of what we've got out there, there's a lot of opportunity, but what we can't have, what I would say, the board would agree with me on this, we can't have residents going to employees of the county. Am I correct that a county employee get addressed with, what are you doing? And then a utility employee got addressed with. Okay. I really would encourage folks that have concerns to come before this board and say your piece. We're happy to listen. We're happy to accommodate that in our planning as appropriate, but please don't go to utility employees who might be doing maintenance out there, or county employees and request or demand or get fired up about what they may or may not be doing. There's a lot of opportunities out there. My intent is to bring those opportunities to this board and get buy-in and approval before we make changes. And with the pandemic, that has pretty much been on hold for the past 9 months or a year. So we're more than anxious to get started on that. I have a budget. I've been told by the board to make a project list up, which I'm in the middle of doing. But again, given the past turmoil that's been around the lagoons and the management of the lagoons, none of us want to go back to those days. And so I hope you appreciate that. So I'd open this up for any of the board comments, or can I respond to that? Well, let me first ask if I have board members that have a different thought, because I'm just one board member.
Well, item number 4 here. Probably 8 years ago, we were presented a letter from the Department of Natural Resources or NRCS, and the back pond is to be dry. It is to be dry. It is not to be a pond. And that's when it was full of water, or half full of water. And we started drinking. And we have, and I'd have to go back and look through the minutes, but God, you remember when that was and they showed up here?
It was 7, 8 years ago. Yes, he was standing in the back of the room.
And they came in here and they presented us from the state of Indiana. And I think it was Mr. Slifer at the time that brought this to us and said this, when this all took place, that north pond was to be dry. So, we, this board, had ordered the gate to be open. Well, the gate kept getting shut. So I believe we've taken the gate out.
And then they filled it with rocks.
Yeah. And so, we're following a set of rules and laws that we have to with that. And there's vandalism, there's things that Rick has said that's went on, and it's like, we got a set of rules to follow, but everybody that uses it out there and everything else want to make their own set of rules with them. And, we're trying to maintain it and make it look nice. It's the back pond will not have water.
Whatever water in it is natural water.
Exactly.
I can probably go a little more specific on that. When that back pond was designed, it was not designed to keep and retain water. I have the actual plans in my office where that was drawn up. I have the actual letters of agreement between Mr. Schleifer, which I provided to this board probably 10, 12 years ago, probably somewhere in that vicinity, about wanting us to even close it off completely because it was not being used as what it was intended for. I think it's a great thing out there. The only thing I've seen after being on this board for 25 years is that, like Pete says, everybody has their own opinion on how they want it to be run. But nobody comes forward with any money to do anything. It's always left for the utility board and the ratepayers to pay for that. And I guess that's what I'm going to say is we have people come in that want certain things done. We have budgeted some money. We're going to take care of trying to get some things fixed up, get things done. But there's a lot of stuff done out there without our approval, without the approval of the board, or even the board knowing what was going on. But Rick will tell you, I have a file about that thick in my office about the lagoons. What has happened over the years, the utility board adopted a set of rules. To my knowledge, nobody's changed those.
Yeah, I appreciate that, folks. I don't want to get into that. You guys,
Yes. And I was unaware that you had recommendations from DNR about that.
What bloody recommendation? There wasn't no recommendation. It was an order. It was told this is how it's.
I was totally unaware of that.
You give it to Joe and he gets you a copy.
Actually, I'd love to see that, just I'm curious. Just to understand the rationale for that. And because I used to live in Homer, Alaska, and I was part of public works, and so I understand exactly everything you're saying about people doing their own thing in places that they shouldn't be doing. Because I dealt with that for 10 years as an employee at Homer, Alaska. I know exactly what you're talking about. As far as the issue of the nesting habitat is concerned, how that North Lagoon is used, whether it's used as a fishing pond, whether it's used as wetlands, whether it's just let it go dry and not used for anything, really has no bearing on the nesting habitat. basically what I was trying to address today was just the destruction of that nesting habitat. And I do appreciate the whole dynamic of working with the county, you know, that cooperative agreement. And, you know, that's balancing all of that is pretty hard. I understand it. And I understand why they see, let's just cut it way the heck back, and then we won't have to do it again for but if the issue is just trying to protect vehicles that drive through there are quite a few areas there where it doesn't actually grow right up to it. It really wouldn't have to be cut back at all. I mean, how many people drive back there really pay attention to where it does grow up the road? Because there's areas there that wouldn't have to be cut at all, that were cut way back. And there's in the areas that where it grows up the road that really should be cut back so that we don't want things scraping the side of the vehicles. If they go back there and just trim it back no more than 2 feet from the road, because they just literally trimming the ends of the small branches from things. I mean, literally, they could go through there and just buzz that stuff off in no time, rather than going in and doing what they're doing. They're literally grinding on heavy bushes and small trees. I mean, trees, bunches of trees, up to 2 inches. It takes quite a bit of time. They could go in there and do that. We could split compared to the job they do now. And even if they had to do it on a more frequent basis, it would probably take less time to maintain that in the way they want it, maintain to protect the vehicles and still preserve the nesting habitat. Because I think, you know, just like you say, if we're trying to make everybody happy, and I think we can actually do that. I think there's a way to do that without just wholesale cutting everything back. As far as
Well, you know,
and that's
we get caught. You know,
fully
You
understand.
guys are, doesn't want to cut back, but you know, we as a board,
What we're saying, we don't want to cut back like it was. We understand if it's going to be cut back. That, I mean, that's
I have not been out there to see it. And
worth it.
It's best. It's way better.
which if I'd been out there, it'd have been way back all the way.
Well, maybe more.
Yeah, I mean, but
Your comments, and just got into your comments.
Yeah, I really would love to see the thing from the state, just because you know, those big reeds, those common reeds. The greatest, I used to know the name of those. Scientifically, you throw up on basically on the reed, the northeast, west side of the lagoon. Those are things that are kind of invasive, and those are ones that, when they go dry, when they grow dry, they really spread because the roots, when they're exposed to oxygen, are really spread.
I have pictures, I think I still have a picture in my office that shows that whole lagoon completely covered with nothing, tracks to it where the wildlife is walking through. I mean, I'm in my office Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the city building. You want to come up there and see?
No, I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that.
I got a whole file come up and I'll let you read it.
Appreciate that.
Well, moving forward, a plan I have not shared with the board members. I've spoken just recently last week with Mayor Judy. But in order to go forward, what I envision as a partnership, collaboration between the Frankfurt Utilities, County Highway, and Frankfurt Parks. Cutting back the brush is one element of that. That's been done now. We can't undo that. So that's the way it is. And so the plan I developed, and I haven't shared that, which it will be shared when at the right point. Starts out with that arrangement. We want to open up some viewing to the the North Wildlife area, where currently some benches are pretty much overgrown with brush where you can't see much. But the list of potential improvements, I mean, it's kind of the old catch-22. If we talk about making improvements, we're going to have people talking about, well, I don't want changes. Well, how do you make improvements if you don't change it? It's catch-22. But there's a lot more utility or benefit of that site than how it's been, I'll use the term loosely, managed over the past 20 years. Improved viewing, improved safety. Part of that includes security cameras, access controls, that facility is closed dusk to dawn. And it's kind of like illegal firearms use. The people who don't comply with that rule, the people who don't follow the law. And they go back there 80 hours a day and night, in particular. And it's well known. So we're going to start mitigating all that misuse. Some of the improvements we'll try sharing on our Facebook page at a time. We're happy to take comments or input. We've got some repairs to make to the viewing platform in the north end. And I would be remiss in the talk about the wetlands or the north wildlife area. I reached out to, I think, 3 different individuals with DNR last fall. 2 of them visited the site with me on separate occasions. And we spent 2 or 3 hours out there. The invasive species of wheatgrass you were referring to, Richard, came about when a well-intended resident took it on his own to go out in the boat with weed killer and illegally spray herbicide around the perimeter of the pond to kill what he thought were bad weeds. And what sprang up in their place were the even worse invasive species weeds that, in order to eradicate those, the DNR says, well, you hire a licensed applicator with a helicopter, and at the cost of about $10,000 per application over a period of about 2 to 3 years, you might get rid of most of it. And we're probably not going to do that. So we have to be careful we don't mismanage in doing our management activities. I'd like to see more picnic areas out there. I'd like to see more people use it. And I know that some people who currently use it and have used it are going to be concerned about more people being back there. At some point, we're going to hear there's too many people using this facility. That's my belief. So again, I go back to that idea of compromise. We've got to be willing to work with each other. I fully appreciate your concern about trimming the trees back. Now that they're trimmed back, what we want to have is less opportunity for people to do illegal dumping, less opportunity for an injury to occur when people are out walking around that perimeter, other people are driving around the perimeter, avoiding mud holes and so forth. There's a lot of things that come into play there. And so opening that up and in partnership with the intent is to make that north route a one-way vehicle route counterclockwise, allowing parking on the inner side so you can pull up somewhere, park, and not be concerned about collisions or traffic patterns or whatever. I guess I'm saying there's going to be more changes in the future than we have in the past, but somehow we have to work through this, and the users have to understand that as we make changes, pretty much they're going to be for the better, and it's fair to complain. Please don't complain to utility employees or county employees. All we need is a few elected officials to tell us you can buy your own gravel, you can spread your own gravel, and we pretty much be out of business at some point.
I can also clarify one thing. I'm the one that talked to PJ, and so that may be the one who, that might be the reference to the city official. And did I complain to you, or was I just, because I basically, I talked to PJ and I just was asking what the rationale for that back was. Because I don't think, did I come off as a complaint?
As a matter of fact, I'm actually put it like to.
Okay. And I also
guess-
talked to Rick.
Use the term loosely, complaint.
I talked to
Maybe it's
Rick,
an observation.
I talked to Rick Campbell, and all I could say is I wish that I had witnessed along. Because all I did was ask him who had asked him to cut it back. And after about 2 or 3 minutes, I just excused myself politely and left, because all I could say was the reaction I got. We just simply asking the question, where did he get the request to cut it back? It was, I guarantee I'll never go back to the county highway.
Okay, well, I think.
Because all I did not go to complain. I made 0 complaints. All I did was go and ask the question. Simple question.
So if we conclude this section, one of the things, it's not gonna have to be trimmed for a while, we know that. So as we approach a time that we need to trim again, I would hope that we can have some system-wide conversation about what we can do to kind of accommodate not only the vehicles, but, you know, I have been there, and you're right, it looks like maybe at least 8 feet on the inside and maybe 6 or so in the outside, so it's been chopped. So thank you, Dick, we appreciate your time. We're gonna move on and go on to the regular business of what's going on. You can feel free to stay if you want, or you can go. All right, next thing I have on the agenda is just some finalization of the water expansion project. I think there's some documents and some things that need to be taken care of. So between Mike Beck, Chris, and someone from Westler, and Todd, who's doing what?
Andrew Gordon is here for us.
Go ahead, Joe.
I have one question before we move on. Before any plan is brought to anyone other than this board, would you bring us first?
Yeah,
Okay. Because it's not going to be productive if you take it elsewhere.
that's what I told Mayor Judy.
Mayor Judy, let me go.
I told Mayor Judy that once I put a plan together and shared it with the board, we have consensus. of putting back in the parks.
I did, we had the parks do before. Yes,
We're gonna do parks every year, so we can
everyone's,
have a different mayor, different people doing.
I realize that. I just don't have the same gifts.
You get my gist. Again, I'm not
All we got to do is ask.
I'm not one who likes to be involved in fiascos, so I'll avoid a fiasco at all costs.
Just like Veterans Park.
We tried to give it away.
All right.
What was that?
Who's talking? Who's talking?
Andrew Gordon from Westwood.
I will try.
Thank you.
You can pull it down if you're comfortable, that's up to you.
Everybody can hear me so much better, as my wife always says, you know, she's careful, just trying to be preschool. She knows what she's doing.
I'm not going to hear you with mask on.
Okay. I have contracts that I brought this evening for the board to sign. One is for the County Road 0 and the State Road 75 projects. The other contract is for the Armstrong Road water treatment plant expansion. So I've got 2 contracts for approval and signature. On the contracts that we wrote. Alicia, she's seen this, have seen it. I also have accompanying those 4 contracts, all copies of certificate of insurances that I'll two notices to proceed, one for each project as well as the contractor's permission to start. The pre-construction meetings are tomorrow and Wednesday for both of those projects. And then Chris here has the contracts for the West Tank.
Those to receive, and there's the bonds, insurance certificates in there as well, can be signed. Pre-fund is possibly get this week, but potentially. Business scheduling.
Those have signature places for all the board members, right?
Yes, the contractors have already signed these, the board members, their signature lines for each of the board members to sign.
What brings us to send them around. Actually, we authorized these at the last meeting.
You authorized it? Yes, yes. you did.
Those are those three.
Chris, you want to read those out loud?
I've read them all. It took lots of time, trust me.
We just wanted to say Chris can do it for us.
I'm sure he can, but we might all be asleep. Let me just tell you, it's a good read.
Is it?
It is.
Glad I didn't have any
3
trouble. I
times.
would've written.
I can read.
So was the wastewater one. That was a good read for me. You read all them, Chris? Those are 3 books you got.
Those are the same. Yeah.
Did you read each? Did you read one of them?
Right.
Only one here.
There was.
You're lucky. You got it.
You want to state that? What they do?
McDonald's okay to eat on that day?
You want to predate that with a couple months? This is the-
Let's not do that. Then, you know, every public access requires, I'm going to explain. Bias around. They don't have to use their lawyers, so.
Okay, so all they have to do is sign, all they have to do is sign it right there. This is the same thing, yeah?
Do I keep a copy of all these? Let me take them all back if you would mind. Yes, I will stay for the meeting and I'll read some of all of them. Full documents.
So we just sign with this paper, we don't have to do anything.
Right, and there's three copies each, so I'll leave one for the city. I'll take one to the contractor.
Okay.
So we don't, it's already been dated, so we're right.
It's already been. Over by my office, people have been moving down Walnut Street, thinking that it goes all the way through, and then they would cover their CVS there, and they would get back, turn around and come back. And it could be really
When we started paving, that's when we were talking.
not much. I mean, it's been a rough day for people, because they've been going all around my house and trying to get around.
They like the jets, that was a little car that-
And I had my window open most of the day. And I was like, "Oh, right, the house all shut."
But there was people down in your home neighborhood too, there was some semi.
Oh, really?
On Van Buren.
Hopefully they don't come back.
We're just trying to get them on the roads over.
Put it up tight so they don't come down my way.
Yeah. Right, center.
Yeah, I think that. We wanted that. Yeah, we wanted that. We wanted that one. You? Okay. The water claim just got put in there.
All right, is that all done then?
Any questions?
With all the money that you got.
I've got 5 pieces of paper I signed in the last week on that SRF stuff. For my water stuff, and Becky's emailing to me, so I will forward these emails to all of them.
And I signed too for wastewater on Thursday. Oh.
All right. Okay. Andrew, what you got?
Well, speaking of water SRF, we did, I don't know if you guys saw an email 3 weeks ago now, we did get the reimbursements on the 16th. It must have been the morning of the close, like 10 a.m. they were in the bank. So I have the treasurer's office split it to be received date for the proper funds, according to the breakdown of the bank. So the reimbursement money is accounted for. January and February are reconciled and closed.
Great.
Stacy?
We are wrapping up payment plans. They should, the majority of them should be finished this month. There's a week I can't pull that, but by the next meeting, they should all be pretty much paid, but at that point in time, I'll come back and report how many paid off in full, how many we didn't have paid, and let you know how that was going. So,
Bill?
Our apprentice leader, Chris Jason, is in Warrisburg this week. He's Scottsburg. His 3-year lab. So he'll be getting more in depth and transplantation and stuff like that. He'll have this morning and back Friday. And then, you've been down to 28th, and basically build this street to early trucks. We started on that, move back project last week, really started on it. And, both crews are tied up down there. And then the company's coming tomorrow, there's some travel day from the mall to work on the tap change back there on the finish number. Hopefully they get it, basically get it back on the next couple days.
I know it's $10 parts of it. So. $900,000 transfer, $10 part. So, and then we got to wait for them to get us the schedule. On my
So this still not operating, we're still operating on one side.
and two plus. So, well, we hopefully if everything goes well.
Hopefully if they get it back tomorrow, and they give us, okay, but I'd like to just slightly on Wednesday, see how it's going to respond, and then finish loading it up.
Well, it's one of these deals that, the first three that was in here could have done. But if anybody else touches that piece of equipment or changes it, they warranty. So all this work that these guys are trained, they're coming up from Mississippi. And, it's all under warranty. So if we would have touched that switch, because what happened was there's a shaft on this tap changer that broke loose. And then something else happened and it bent the lever of the micro switch. And the guy said that he was like it straight. But if something else happened, you're out of luck. So that's why it's just been waiting for that.
Plus to change it $10 switch, it's gonna be green, the wall's gonna be green now.
So they got a job to block. But they're supposed to be in town now and be here at 8:00.
Any other questions? Mike Beck, you've got so many big projects going and you're in the water world, clean water, the dirty water and all that. How are you keeping up with all the balls in the air?
Got good people who work with me.
Anything else you want to report to us tonight?
No, I don't think so. I'm anxious to see the water plant get started. Be at that meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, and just anxious to see it get going.
Well, we'll go to those people you got working for you. We'll start with PJ today.
We put our disinfection online. I started April 1st. Everything ran fine. We helped the gym guys. We got all the filter remediation removal done. Doing some painting. Fence was repaired. The county was everything
Okay. Let's go over to Jim then.
I had a quick question.
Okay, go ahead.
Was what you spoke about involving getting away from chlorine? Or is it just that? Okay.
Okay, Jim.
We had a sanitary main collapse on Washington Avenue last Thursday. Replaced 14-foot pipe there. Elmwood Drive, we did 2 sanitary sewer repairs there. One was roots and it collapsed. And back in the PJ, back a couple of poles for light plant. And we're on video East Walnut from Clay to Young, since the road's closed, Parkway. No semis coming through, so we can get in video with the head of the next phase before it gets up to us.
The collapse on Washington Avenue, they didn't get it all when they were doing their boring through there.
No.
Not in that area.
The area that they repaired when I was in Florida on vacation, it was part of that. It was on east of that. They replaced 12 feet and the next 2 joints to the east had caved in, and the homeowner on the north side of the road, 654, guess we were backed up. Actually, I saw he was pumping. Last week. We got the camera down there. We got the hose through one way, couldn't get back to the Delaware.
So that definitely was not caused by them boring.
No.
Okay. That's all I know, because I know you guys were down there.
When they said the manhole, and the main fell in, that took the main with it. That piece was in that section. Then on the east of that, 2 pieces of clay was beyond that.
Chris, anything else?
Just our guys have been, they've been working on the service record cards and stuff, putting that stuff in the silver cement, so they've got all that done, some valve cards. So 2,000 valve cards and 7,000 service record cards, it's all on silver cement now. They worked on trenching conduit in at the west tower, so they can run the power to the ground permanently. That needs to be removed for like. The fiber. We've got stuff came in from Wabash Street, but they showed us the wrong valves. Put them up, so we have to wait a couple more weeks now. Start on that.
Shane, how's the changing of the email going? I know there was some issues this last weekend or so.
It's going pretty good. What a lot of people run into is just the nature of the migration from the two systems. There's the same email address on both systems, so oftentimes what people run into is they go to send an email, and for example, if they reply to an email that was on the old system, now they do it on the new one, then the email won't go, and you get failures. So it doesn't happen to everybody, but it does happen. Otherwise, it's going really well. So we're continuing to work on it. On that note, I'll be contacting the board after tonight to schedule times with you guys to get your accounts migrated as well. So continue to move forward.
Any questions, other questions for Shane? Thank you, Shane. Yeah, I've looked. Well, Rick comes before general manager. You have anything else, Rick?
Given the nature of the noises, essentially stopped work on the plane programs. And then after last meeting, I started on that again. That's making good lessons programs. Short term, except things. Wise. Probably a month or so out, we're going to a general update plan. So we're going to where this one opportunity.
Okay, general manager.
Just a couple of things. With the tower being redone, the antenna is scheduled to come down April 16th. So that'll be down and out of our way. County, that's a responsibility. They found somebody, I believe she said it was out of Minnesota, didn't she, Chris, on that email. But anyway, it doesn't matter. That is coming down on the 16th because Viking Kane was hoping to be in town and start their process on the 19th, as early as the 19th, if we can get their pre-con meeting on this week. So that's where we're at with that tower right now. And obviously, it's been mentioned, we're going to be tied up here this week quite a bit with pre-construction meetings for water, which we're looking forward to. I think we already had one so-called pre-construction meeting with project construction. It seemed to have ducks in a row, ready to hit it over the more details. This week. Another meeting that we're going to have, it's also on the 16th, with Westlers, it's going to be there, two county officials on an aquifer study, become potentially a regional water district. We're being told it might be something that our best interest will over here now, so we're going to have other officials, public officials there that meeting as well to specifically said.
By the way, that setting up regional water district is definitely our best interest.
Yes.
It doesn't take much for someone to,
Come in and drill.
let's say out of Fickle or some aquifer, come in and drill.
They can come in and drill a mile away from us, yes, on it right now.
Yes,
They get approximately,
that's go back a couple years. Yeah, so as we discussed, I would want to encourage it.
yeah, so we'll find details and report back. What is going on. One last thing, we're gonna, we have a couple of most of the region for grant. And, they're coming in, put in a couple flow meters on our sewer main that runs through from, the railroad tracks over by IGA. Works its way through town. We're gonna put our flow meters in there, see what kind of flow we have. If we have infiltration flow, and everything will be in place for 2 weeks. But we're gonna be checking that line, see what kind of flow we have for future development. If we want to go somewhere else. With different things, but it's a big line. It's larger as it gets to the creek, correct? Yes.
18 at IGA, and it goes to 21 in Indiana. That's the Armstrong.
So we're gonna be looking at that for future projects. So just
In fact, with respect to normal usage flow or infiltration, like
we need to see it with normal. Well, we probably need to see it both ways, but we're looking for just normal flow rate.
if it doesn't rain in 2 weeks,
Right, but we're hoping just to see the what normal flow rate is. That's really all I need.
Okay, we have the 28 West expansion to I-65. We have the 28 in-town thing going on. We have a lot of projects going on. I know that we appreciate seeing what's going on at the wastewater expansion and all. Will we have people watching over these other projects to make sure that they're going to the specifications that we want?
Yes, we'll be getting detailed reports and everything. One of them that Roberto, is it next name Roberto? Roberto is doing the wastewater right now, going to 65, and he's going to be coming over and doing our expansion at the water plant. He's very good. Gives good detailed reports. But on the State Road 28, there'll be an inspector there. It will be getting detailed reports. But yes, they'll all be monitored and watched. It's going to be helpful to us. Yeah.
Yeah. We learned the lesson on one time, and I think we need to take that lesson at heart and make sure that we have someone checking those things.
Eric's very good.
He is. Roberto's just about as good too.
Well, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Have two good ones in town.
Another one that we have is they're supposed to do a final inspection on water tomorrow. Did you ever hear anything different, Chris? Because
I did not, so tentatively tomorrow afternoon at 1, certainly the courthouse, then goes on to 65 for a substantial completion of the water side. Which would be that project.
there was some talk about it being rescheduled.
We talked about delaying it and everything back. So, whether that's still on. And there's also tower booster station. We don't know if it's in May. We should see for that.
Claims.
I make a motion to approve claims as presented.
Motion by Mike Weaver to read the claims as presented. Second. Second by Joe. Let's do a roll call, Andrew. Question, go ahead.
So, I'm not understanding the mileage reimbursement. For the home office.
It's when they take their own personal vehicles and they do the deposit, go to the bank, go to the post office, something. So that's been on there for forever. Correct? time you don't see it is when I do.
And then I just want to voice my concern to the board on the power and light, city power and light. I just, under the pre-written claims, first line item, card member services, $4,000 some dollars. And the list of items under that expense include phones, notary renewal, swivel fitting, lucid chart, base camp, metro line handles, and cord replacement. And I'm sitting here saying I can't determine how many dollars are against each one of these various things. And I'm gonna ask again, don't we need more granularity? Don't we need more accountability for what these things are and what we're spending? $4,000 for a bucket list of all kinds of stuff from almost toilet paper to light bulbs. It's not quite that bad. I just don't like saying it. As a pre-written claim, it's already paid before we see it. So I'm wondering what we could do, if anything, to get this turned around. It seems like it's almost done, particularly this one. So.
Well, I think, speaking from, I don't have the claim here, it's a period that's already been done.
Yeah.
But thinking about it, I don't know when the last time I had a revenue service has a pre-written actually was. I'm gonna say that this one happened because of just the timing of last month. The last month we had this like, so it happened 3 weeks. If she got the bill on 16th.
Isn't there an option that if we have an expense, we have to pay one of the board members that represents the financial interest? Could there be a discussion about, oh, yeah, I see that, let's go ahead and do that, and just let them know? I don't know involved in that
I don't
detail.
know any such thing, but that's absolutely something that
We're over a year's period, we're in tens of thousands of dollars of pre-written stuff. They come and go. We're just not looking for that, so.
But isn't that a life item? Isn't that, wouldn't that fall in part of my responsibility to know that there's not anything on it or anything like that?
Well, I don't know. They're coming before the board, we're approving claims, I still see the information that makes me feel comfortable, but I know you want to approve.
Well, even with that, on that one there, that part of the service, a bigger portion of that is for our phone service. If they go to a credit card, we don't get billed annually or monthly. If they bill us monthly through a credit card, it's for all the phone services and then
in the city as well.
in the city as well.
So I was,
It's not like we're buying cell phones, we're buying new desktops or anything like that. It's actually the phone service.
just my 2 cents, I feel a lot more comfortable if there were 5, for example, card member services invoices. And one of them is monthly phone bill, $2,800, or whatever it is. Okay. But when we combine things that are so different and just kind of random in nature, and they're all in one credit card invoice, and we rewrite it, I'm not seeing the information I feel comfortable that I'm approving this. If I weren't asked to approve, it'd be that. Okay, so it's not something we have to talk about before. And to your question, yeah, you signing for stuff gives us some assurance that someone's accountable. But that's not why he's coming before the board for the board.
That's true.
You know,
That's a good point.
and either as a check and balance or just having things visible to everybody. We talked about the pre-writtens before, and I know we've never come to a conclusion we need to really do anything. But I think a couple of us at least have not been real comfortable with pre-writtens when they get into the thousands of dollars.
Well, they have been better. To be fair, they have been better.
They have since our last discussion.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean,
The months that I've not asked questions about them, they were better.
yeah,
That's why I didn't ask
we
questions.
just have 3 weeks. You're gonna have to.
We had 5 minutes.
That's what I mean, yeah, we got 3 weeks of meeting, so.
It was the same thing. 5 Monday months, if you look
Maybe that's a simple answer, but once in a while it's gonna happen.
But, and I can break those down. The card member services, even if they're not good, if you want. Or, I guess we're,
I guess I'll ask this. If when card member services, they say, when you get the bill, it's itemized.
and I have itemized purchase orders. So,
It's itemized in the fact that something was purchased at Rocky Supply and something was purchased at Gilman or whatever. But it doesn't say what. One of the things that
the departments do keep track of that, because I do have, the purchase orders that I get from them, that I look at are detailed, and I don't know what this is.
So would it be practical to, I used the phrase compromise earlier in the meeting, would it be really practical to kind of find some midpoint between everything being separate and everything being rolled together? And
Yeah.
rolled together.
So that right there is obviously attached to the claim, so the total claim that is moved out. If I can look at this, because that's where I think it needs to, I look at those.
Okay. So somewhere between that level of detail.
Yeah, I just combined it,
Everything
I
added
just,
together.
I just combined all of these things, like if you look at the wastewater, it says posted accident reporting pictures for a total of $50. It says those things, it just doesn't have a, the accident report was broken, so it's still have that level of detail. But I absolutely can't put it in. So,
Well, I don't know what the board's pleasure is, maybe it's good enough, but when we get in the aggregate number being in the thousands of dollars, and we have no, I don't know what we're doing here.
Is there,
Well, Rick, why don't, obviously I'm on the finance committee, why don't Todd and I talk about it? And then if it comes to the point of, say, the card member service or pre-rentals, if he or I send everybody I mean, if we send an email that says these are pre-writtens, anybody got any complaints, I mean, we're gonna expect a reply from the email. You know, there's numerous times where we're, well, but I mean, you know, if we want, you know, want some more, you know, because all it's gonna take is Andrew to turn around and when there's some pre-writtens coming up, is forward us an email with them on there. And then, you know, we can send them on and but if somebody disagrees with one on there or questions one, you know, they're gonna have to, you know, answer the email, speak up. You know, there's so many things that, you know I send a lot of stuff out and probably Mike Readers, don't want to reply. I mean, Mike Kelly won't even reply.
I don't have.
Joe won't reply, you know, and so we send an email out and we don't get no reply. Then do you move forward or do you not move forward?
If you just send it to the right reply.
Yeah. I get one of yours occasionally, but.
Well, don't misunderstand me, I'm not talking about micromanagement, but when you get the thousands of dollars in a given 2-week period, maybe one answer is to break it down into the larger transactions with a couple thousand phone bill, then this knocks us down to where it's more understandable, that's all I'm saying.
I would say the last 5 months, 6 months, the pre-writtens have been released that they were last year.
I would agree.
I mean, because, you know, we had the discussion before.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it seemed to, you know, I seen these and basically I let it go just because of the 5 Monday.
And that didn't
Month.
enter my mind. I mean, you're right.
Thinking, you know, well, that caught us off guard by a week and made it be that way, you know. If I had my say, you know, you know what I'd say, we wouldn't do recruitment.
I understand.
I mean, we never did recruitment.
I understand. Somehow we're in a position where we're being slowly have to do that, so.
We turned around and when we had to do them, you know, I remember before Todd came in, Judy would call me.
not when she was mayor, but when she was in the clerk treasurer's office, or Shannon and the girl that were there, and say, hey, we got these that have to get paid, can we get paid? Yeah, that's when we'd send out an email with them.
Well, I don't pretend to know the answer, that's why I feel it's kind of important.
But, you know, I mean, we don't need to add more work to, I mean, you know, obviously we all have got, as the spring's coming, and Mike just mentioned all of the projects that's going around, you know, Todd, Chris, and Phil, and PJ, you know, Jim, those guys are, they ain't gonna have time to sit around and babysit these pre-writs.
Well, it comes to me, Sarah, like specifically Sarah, it's easy to do. So maybe it's easy as us deciding monetary threshold, and if it gets above that, then I can start asking. Raises the money.
We got the two items that are explanatory.
Yeah, something
Or
like
something.
that, but we just need, I think it's need to set monetary value.
Most time the pre-written is a utility, insurance, or a credit card, and it's been over a long
Or services.
Yeah, I've
John
always,
Deere has a credit card too.
I've always disagreed with us writing pre-writs.
Well,
I mean, we're not gonna charge ourselves, you know,
late fees.
The thing about that is that we were told several years ago that from the State Board of Accounts that they do not like to see us paying bills late, even if it's to ourselves. So we have always been told to follow the due date, and if it's gonna fall and make it, then, I mean, all of our accounts are set to not charge penalty, but but they're not being paid on time.
Was that a verbal, we were told, or was that a finding in the audit?
I don't know if it was found in audit or not, but it was a
I believe,
verbal we were told
that was
from.
in an audit because I was there when that,
Yeah, it came from the clerk treasurer's office is what we were, is when we were told, because we didn't used to put them in as free writs, and then they started becoming a free writ if, and again, most of the time you always see it is when there's a 5 Monday month.
you know, we used to never do pre-writs. And then that's when the audit on the card member services got it, you know, we were getting service charges, it's at $3, $4. And they come back and said, next time that come out of Julie's pocket. And so then that's
Well,
when.
it now comes out of each department's pocket.
Right. And so, you know, that's when we went to allow this.
Well, we talked about it, and
So all these pre-written, you've looked over, yeah, signed off on.
Yeah, I sign, the only department that I don't sign claims for is I sign all the departments. Or USB.
I don't believe we voted on that yet.
No, we have not.
So we had a motion, I believe. We had a second.
Reader and Joe,
Now we need a roll call.
Rick Egan.
Aye.
Joe Root.
Aye.
Mike Reader.
Aye.
Kip Brewer. Mike Tipp.
Alicia,
Real briefly, the little piece of property in the middle of K Company is going to close tomorrow. So that should be off of our plates. I submitted the bills to them, so no one will pay that, they should be. And I think that should be the end of that, unless there are any other lingering issues that we have to deal with.
There's another legal,
I have a feeling I know what that is.
yeah, they was concerned about that substation that was taken out there, and if there was, if they need to do soil testing, soil bores.
Right.
They had to walk along the pond to do my, once.
Might pay.
Like that.
Yeah, So if that comes back with something, we'll have to deal with that.
It doesn't sound like, from when I talked to him last today, it doesn't sound like we're gonna have to do this one.
Good.
So I
I'm
think,
glad to hear that.
Yeah.
But I sent them to you. Sorry.
not a problem.
But I didn't have the information, so I sent them to you. But I think aside from that, it should close and we shouldn't have any problems with that. Did you get those resolutions that I sent over to your office?
Yes.
Okay, good. Super. And I think that's pretty much it from my stuff.
We've had a lot of old business. Is there any other old business that we need to
There's
discuss?
one quick thing, and a question for Alicia. Please send me the latest version of the, I'll call it the identification letter and agreement when a person wishes to volunteer to work at the government.
Oh, yes, I can do that.
I thought I had that, but my computer's not cooperating, I can't find it. And we went through that iterations, and we talked to Les, made some changes, and,
Yes.
that comes up because the volunteer identification letter on the city's website for park people volunteering in city parks is completely inadequate, nothing like what we developed. And so I told Judy I would get her a copy of what we developed, so maybe they can maybe take off that
Gotcha.
to the city parks.
Okay, yeah, that's an easy one. I can definitely do that.
Thank you so much. I had a quick question on the board business. Okay, I was asked, what are all the drain pipes, that's the phrase they use, on Kelly Road to the south? Is there a new addition going to South Kelly Road? Or
Yes.
is it-
There's a guy named Gene Marshall is tiling that field,
Oh, he is, okay.
grid tiling that field.
Okay, all right, nothing to do with us. Not time in, like the wastewater, we go.
Okay, that was brought up and asked, and, between Jim and Todd and Alicia and I, there was a decision.
Good.
Well, it's wastewater, you wouldn't tie the storm.
Well, I do that.
Water, but
I think the less enforcement that's his own water, you're right.
He was taking it all the way to the west to the creek.
Yeah. All right, well, I was asked by two people, I'm like, I don't really talk about it, they'll find that that road, so. That concerned me with it. Maybe the county was doing an addition out there, I didn't know that. So, all right, that takes care of me. Thank you.
Any other? Motion for adjournment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Unless you have it.
I don't know.
Feet roughly?